Everyone in town knew about the old Kensington house at the end of Birchwood Street. It stood there, forgotten by time, with vines creeping up its cracked walls and windows that seemed to always be watching. People whispered about strange things happening there, but no one dared go inside, except for Jacob. Jacob wasn't the type to believe in ghost stories. He'd heard all the tales about the house, how it was haunted by the spirits of the Kensington family, who mysteriously disappeared decades ago, but to him it was all just nonsense. He needed a thrill, something to prove that all those stories were nothing more than urban legends. So one night he decided to enter the house. It was a crisp autumn evening, and the wind howled as Jacob approached the front door. The hinges groaned under the weight of time as he pushed it open, revealing a dark, dusty hallway. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the floorboards creaked with every cautious step. Armed with only a flashlight, Jacob moved deeper into the house. The light flickered as he scanned the room's old furniture covered in white sheets, peeling wallpaper, and the remnants of a life long abandoned. As he reached the living room, something caught his attention, a faint whisper. It was so soft, he almost didn't notice it. "Jacob." He froze. It must have been the wind, he thought. But then, the whisper came again, clearer this time. "Jacob, upstairs." His heart raced, but his curiosity won over his fear. Against his better judgment, he climbed the creaking stairs. The air grew colder with each step, and the whispers grew louder. They were everywhere now, echoing around him in a chorus of eerie voices. "Help us, Jacob." The second floor was darker, the air almost suffocating. Jacob found himself drawn to a particular room at the end of the hallway. The door was slightly ajar, and he could see the faint glow of light from inside. As he stepped closer, the whispers turned into frantic murmurs, almost as if they were warning him, but it was too late. Jacob pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was unnervingly pristine, untouched by the decay that filled the rest of the house. In the center of the room was an old mirror, its surface strangely clean despite the dust everywhere else. He approached it cautiously, and as he did, his reflection seemed wrong. At first, it was subtle. The reflection's movements didn't quite match his own. Then, the face staring back at him began to change. It grew older, more twisted, until it wasn't his face anymore. It was the face of a man he didn't recognize, gaunt and pale, with hollow eyes full of torment. The man in the mirror opened his mouth and spoke, though his lips barely moved. "They took us. We can't leave. You're next." Suddenly, the whispers turned into screams. The room seemed to pulse with energy, and Jacob was thrown back by an unseen force. The door slammed shut behind him, and the air grew colder still. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. Desperate, Jacob scrambled to his feet and bolted for the door, but it wouldn't open. The screams grew louder, unbearable, until they filled his head completely. And then, silence. Everything stopped. When Jacob's friends went looking for him the next morning, the house was just as empty as it had always been, but they found his flashlight on the floor of the living room, still on, its weak beam pointing toward the old mirror upstairs. No one ever saw Jacob again. They say if you stand outside the house at night, you can hear the whispers calling your name, just like they called Jacob. And if you're foolish enough to go inside, you might see him, trapped, in the mirror.